Welcome to another Odyssey House Journal. I'm Trip Mitchell, along with Randall Carlisle.
How are you doing, Trip?
I am good.
Me too.
This has been, up in our 40s now, show-wise. I am so proud of this
Show-wise,
show.
not age-wise.
No.
I wish I was age-wise in my 40s. But...
Well, how do you look so youthful? Is it not drinking? Could that be a factor?
Well, when I started going to school and thinking about being an anchor man, I met this drug dealer who gave me some pills, and they were called anchor pills. And he said, if you take these for the rest of your life, your hair will always be perfect and you'll stay young. So that's what I've been. No, sounds like I'm supporting drug use there.
Yeah, that sounds a little
If there
scary.
was a pill like that, I don't know. I have good genes. That's
Good.
all.
Randall was a longtime newsman, and his last job was at Channel 4, and was very lucky because you've gotten an opportunity to work at Odyssey House and love everything you're doing. And Channel 4 was nice enough to let you out of the contract.
And this is the best job I've ever had. I actually look forward to going to work every day and sleep very well at night because I know that what we're doing doesn't work for everybody, but the people it works for, it's saving lives. And to me, television news is important, even though there are people who call it fake news. But I wonder who that is. Anyway,
You're probably having a bad day today.
Yeah, it must have been. And I realize it's important, but in terms of saving lives, it doesn't save lives. It informs people.
Sure. And one of the reasons that Randall and I met across the street at the AA Central office across from this studio and said, why don't we do a podcast? And Lee, who's been helping us from day one, believed in it, and we do it now as a TV show, and we've got typically about 12,000 people who listen to the show every week.
Listen or watch.
Yeah,
and you can listen on Spotify or iTunes, and just Google Odyssey House Journals, and it'll give you a link to our YouTube channel as well, so you can watch it, so you can see your handsome face, Trip.
As well people should.
Yes.
And want to thank Thorpe and Travis Thorpe for using his studio. We've got some new graphics here.
We are about that. Upscale, baby.
We are getting there, and Travis for handling the sound, and it's good. So real quick, before we start, we're going to meet Damon in just a second. We're going to give out a phone number. So if you've got someone in your family, a friend, or yourself, and you're feeling despondent, you're feeling like things are not going right, the great news is there are so many people who want to help. And one of the expressions in AA, in order to keep sobriety, you've got to give it away, and that's so true in the treatment community. People want to help.
And our slogan is recovery is possible. And it is. He's an example. We're all examples, right? So the number, as you were alluding to, is 801-322-3222.
And if you want to try that at home, 801-322.
Are you going to finish it? Or
no, I'm going to let you finish it.
3222.
We work so well together.
Yes.
Timing is the key. So Damon, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Damon Harris, he's a shining star in our program. He's case manager at our adult downtown residential facility, and I've observed Damon. The thing I think that's cool about Damon is he's been there, done that, both in terms of using and being on the street and being in recovery. And so he relates really well to just about everyone that he runs into. Maybe you could share last week we had Mike V on, okay, and you were talking before this that you were actually in the program with him.
Yeah. So with Mike V, I remember, so after coming to the conclusion that I needed help, it was my 8th treatment episode. It was 2010. I arrived.
Slow learner?
Yeah, slow. Well, I'm kind of extra, so I got to do a little more than most. But I think I'd been to prison before, and I validated going back, and so I knew that if I didn't get into treatment, that was gonna occur. So Odyssey House was one place where I was trying to avoid. For the life of me, and that's why I went everywhere else, but everywhere else didn't really, help me at all. So, because a lot of those places, you go to groups, and just as long as you go to your groups, you pay your rent and you provide clean urine analysis, you can, pretty much stay. But they didn't give you a platform to practice the information, right? Because all information is useless if it's not practiced, right? And so, with Odyssey, I arrived, and I was really nervous because they were kind of asking me I thought in my mind was crazy stuff. Like they wanted me to be accountable. They wanted me to be vulnerable. They wanted me to talk about some of the pain that I've been keeping secret for a long time. And I was like, yeah, it ain't gonna probably happen anytime soon. But I'm not gonna leave, so we'll just hang out and we'll see how this works out, right? And so just going through the program. Back then, it was a 2.5 to 3 year program. So I knew I had a while to kind of not do anything, be inactive, right? Because a lot of times we gotta sit there for a while before the pain gets great enough before we start, acting, in ways that are better for us. So, I was going through the program, and it was long. I just remember that being long, and so I started. Like I think my first, so I used to write, there's an encounter process there, right? And they want you to be accountable for your feelings, your thoughts, your behaviors, other, people in your community. And a lot of times people don't respond very well to that, right? You might hold them accountable and they treat you a certain way because you haven't been given permission to be honest. And that's kind of a cultural thing. Like a lot of times in our culture, we don't say things because we haven't been given permission, right? So, I had to kind of work through that. And so I was not writing real ones. Like I'd write these real soft, mild ones, safety ones. I wouldn't put them on individuals. I'd just kind of umbrella, level groups or whatever. And because there's safety in that, because then I didn't have to experience any rejection from any, one person. So I was really good at that, like.
So you were just kind of faking it.
Yeah. I was faking it. And so I was real, but, half real. You know what I mean? There's some realness to it, but I wasn't being entirely real. So, and just kind of go through that process. And I've had, I come from a lot of childhood trauma. And so I've had, a lot of personal, I guess, opinions about rejection, right? Because just when you get a lot of childhood trauma, it's just a constant state of rejection.
And so your alcohol or drug abuse was not a reflection of you just woke up one day and go, it'd be fun to get high.
No.
This was a reflection of a lot of issues. Right?
Yeah, a lot of, childhood, well, if I could just kind of touch on some of it, when I was 5, my father was a heroin addict. He overdosed, so that was kind of like my first real, monumental experience that was like real painful. And just sometimes when you're a child, you kind of, maybe you don't interpret reality as accurate as you should. And, that was just kind of like evidence that like, what's wrong with me or why is this, happening? And then,
no, it's no reflection on you.
No, but you kind of, as a kid,
you internalize that.
Yeah, you personalize things, and so, and nobody sits down with you and kind of works that out with you and gives you a different kind of explanation, right? At least nobody in my family did. And so, and just some other things, my mother married I call him a tyrant. He was really abusive to me and my mother. And so, the climate of domestic violence is not really helpful to any child either. So, when I was a teenager, I started getting bigger and, I wanted to stand up for myself. So I got tired of the situation. So I decided to just kind of run away, and so found me a little family in the streets of Salt Lake downtown that, came from the same experiences I did. And we, you find bonds through that, right? And so, but the culture, was, drug use, drinking. And so.
How old were you at the time, Damon?
I think I was about 15.
15 and homeless.
Yeah. I found myself, homeless. I would, I'd be allowed to come back, but I didn't want to go back. But sometimes, after a few months, you're kind of tired and you want to go rest up for a couple weeks, and then you get tired of that and you go back, So I would come back periodically, but I just got tired of that dynamic, that family dynamic, and it was just a lot on my spirit, So, and then how we cope with it, we were like in school. Nobody's ever taught how to, regulate emotionally or how to cope, or there's not a lot of those teachings in schools, right? So, and my, stepfather was like, you will be a man at 7, and this is what men do. They do not cry, So I was kind of programmed to just be really silent and stoic and, just kind of white knuckle reality, and that's just really painful inside, right? And so, of course, when you get a teenager and there's, the drug culture, a lot of teenagers, it's kind of the rite of passage for a lot of us, and so.
Sadly, it is.
Yeah, it is. And so I, got involved in that, and that I did cope with reality for a long time through that. And then when I was, I think about 20, I got introduced to harder drugs, cocaine and heroin. and IV drug use, and that's when the nightmare really went full throttle. And then I caught myself, getting caught, because part of like the story too is, in order to stay high or use drugs, you got to have a way to finance that situation. A lot of us, we come from poor backgrounds. We don't have a bank account to pull from, so there's, the drug selling, right? So there was drug selling and all that. So, in cocaine and heroin, that's a really expensive process to kind of, keep afloat, right?
Sure.
And so, we really got to figure out ways to kind of manage that. And so things you have to do, they're all felonies, right? So I would get caught and get sent to jail, and then, because I was...
So Damon, quick,
Yeah.
what percent of the people in jail that you experience are there because of drug?
I don't know the percent, but I know it's high. I would be safe to say probably 95%. Even if it's maybe it was a drug related charge, but a property crime related to trying to get drugs or violence surrounding drug use.
That's shocking. So we're going to take a short break. Damon's telling us an amazing story. You're watching Odyssey House Journals. That's Randall Carlisle. I'm Trip Mitchell. We'll be back after the short one. And welcome back to Odyssey House Journals. Randall Carlisle, Trip Mitchell. We're visiting with Damon, and when we went to break, you were telling the story about all of a sudden when you get to a harder class of drugs, the crimes needed to pay for them become felonies, and that's when life can go downhill really quickly. What happened with you?
So yeah, just like when I started my 20s, then you get arrested for my thing was selling drugs or possessing them. And so, I get arrested, I get some jail time, and then, because I was addict, they'd always send you to treatment. And I wasn't really, prepared for treatment, but I was willing to go out quicker. If you're going to release me earlier, let's go, right? I'll sign up all day for that. And so, but I knew...
But you were gaming the system.
Yeah, but I knew that, it was just a way to get back to where I was, quicker. And so, they'd send me to treatment. I might last a couple of days, and I'd go back out and do it. And then I'd be out there a couple weeks to catch me again doing something else, and so anyway, that cycle lasted about 5 years, and then out of jail. And then when I was 25, they tired of me, and I was tired too. So, and they actually tried to send me to Odyssey House, and I was like, no, we're not doing none of that. And I was like, I'm good. You can send me to prison, and we'll, I'll get out quicker. Anyway, so they sent me to prison, and that was a mistake because there's nothing there. I was like, I should have went to Odyssey House. So anyway, the same process kind of proceeded, right? They give me time in prison, send me to treatment, I'd run, catch me, and I did that for about 6 years. Only 31. I expired my sentence, and then I, thought I was, because I just got out of the University of Criminality, right? Prisons, you learn a lot more about how to get over. And
you got
so,
your PhD in that.
Yeah, I had a couple of PhDs, at least I thought, and then, so I wanted to apply that information when I got out, and so I went into a crazy, 7, I don't even know if I call it relapse because I was never really, devoted to recovery or stated I was in recovery, right? And so but I went into about 7-year using stint that was really, I don't know how I worked through it. I mean, we can go on hours and hours about what happened and what occurred, but the point is that I survived it, and, and I got the opportunity. I call opportunity now. These weren't opportunities before, but, when I got arrested for 6 1-15s, a couple 0-5s, and I knew that I'm going back to prison, and that's where we kind of started the story. And I knew I had to get into treatment, and I knew Odyssey was going to be that one place because I'd been avoiding it, right? And I just never learned how to get real. And now I was stating in Odyssey, I was kind of picking and choosing what pieces of honesty I want to be, and I've always been really manipulative because if you've ever been on probation or parole, or if you had a girlfriend or a job and you weren't really doing the work of those relationships, you're living a dual lifestyle, you got to create perceptions, right? You got to let people. So I've always kind of been skilled at that, I thought anyway, and so I just kind of worked that angle there because the program was long, and I was like, I don't want to be vulnerable, I don't want to hold people accountable, but I don't want to be here for 3 years either. So I just kind of, and I was, one of the problems I learned too is I wasn't honest about how I operated as a human being when I arrived, because that lack of information worked against me because then people didn't know how to hold me accountable. So I was really good at concealing stuff. So, And
And
so,
for the first time when you're at Odyssey House, you don't have a secret spot you can go to use. You
yeah,
don't.
yeah.
You're there 24/7.
Yeah, yeah. But you know, sometimes using doesn't look like drugs. It looks like, you know, being dishonest. It kind of, for me, it was just like getting over, like on authority. That was always kind of one of my drugs of choices. So I went through Odyssey and made it through, and yeah, so I graduated. I got off adult probation and parole, and I relapsed all within a 2 week period. It was just like boom, boom. So what I learned about that is I left probably more manipulative than I arrived. And the idea is that if you go to treatment, that you leave better than you arrived, right? And
That is
yeah.
kind of a
That's
big part of it. Yeah.
That's the point of it, right? Well, that wasn't with me. But I thought, you know, after 2.5 years being there, like sober, didn't use, like, you know, how are these behaviors tied into sobriety? Because I hadn't experienced a relapse, so I didn't really see it. Didn't resonate, right? But when I went back out, it was weird. The first time I got high that first day, it resonated like deeply. I had all this recovery, Odyssey noise in my head, you know, and having veins full of dope. Like that was probably my bottom. Like and I've experienced some bottoms, you know, like physically, spiritually, but that was like because you can't get high enough to get away from the information, you know. So it was, so you know, I stayed out for a little bit, and then I got the opportunity to come back, and I wasn't really interested because I didn't know if the outcome was going to be the same. So it wasn't really important for me to come back. But it dawned on me. I was like, if I don't learn how to get real, nothing's ever going to change in my life, right? And so when I came in the doors the second time, I just owned that I do not know. And that was huge because, you know, I always arrive somewhere knowing everything. You can tell me nothing. I got information for you. You listen, I don't. And that's just how this operates, right? And so it was weird when I stated that in my mind, like a world full of information that was already there, like opened up to me. And then I could, you know, kind of find out, right? And I was really clear about how I operated, who I was. And, you know, I had to clean up my program, how I did it the first time, and it was embarrassing because.
So Damon, you're in a situation where you go through a long period. People are busting their butt to get you clean and sober, and you drink it, you use again. In your case, how embarrassing was it to walk back through those doors?
It was. I mean, it took me about 7 months, you know, because I was like, oh no, I'm not doing that right now, but. I'll be there in a while if I ever get there. But yeah, it was embarrassing.
You've all our interviews. You seem like the one with the hardest head.
Yeah, I probably am for sure.
Well, it took a long time.
Yeah,
but you embraced it finally.
Yeah,
and
I did embrace it, and I think, you know, my story isn't that abnormal. I mean, maybe as far as guests, but like a lot of our clients have the same kind of story where we're just a lot of trauma. Because I think back then, like, they didn't link the trauma to addiction. It was just, you know, more about a behavioral problem or, you know, whatever problem, right? And now we're starting to see the trauma. You know, you have to heal the trauma if you want to heal some of the behaviors. So, and that's some of the work I did the second time. We had a trauma group, which we didn't have the first time because I just think that lack of information, it was absent. So the second time I went back, it was there.
So you realize that having a father who ODs at the age of 5 is not normal, and having a stepfather who beats you or whatever.
Yeah, and it's not normal not to talk about it because then you have abnormal behaviors when you're silent about it, right?
And now you, as a case manager, you deal with people just like you.
Yeah, for sure.
So there's nothing anyone in Odyssey House can tell you that you can't see through pretty easily.
Yeah,
Or that he hasn't done or he hasn't heard.
I even see through my own because sometimes I like to have good ideas about things, and I'll sit there and go, yeah, all right, Damon, stop the story right now, right? Because I know when I'm starting to manipulate myself about certain things too.
In AA, a lot of times they'll tell you if you've got a good idea, do the opposite.
Yeah, or I heard that this was the best feedback I got. Don't do your own thinking stupid. You know, I was like. I heard that. I was like, oh my God, that was the most profound thing I ever heard in my life.
Before we run out of time, I want to point out one thing that Damon, you know, we talk in AA and everything about giving back and service and things like that. And Damon is like one of the most active people in the community that has nothing to do with Odyssey House, with harm reduction. Maybe you just briefly touch on that so we can.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, so when I left recovery, I was a really militant, kind of abstinent-based model guy, and I needed to be because it's the way I act, you know, in my addiction. So after a while, I got introduced. You know, I met Mindy Vincent with Youth Harm Reduction Coalition, and got introduced to the harm reduction model of recovery, and I started kind of seeing, and working with IV drug users out in the community, and I started seeing how kind of the abstinent model is useless to these guys. Like it's not, this information doesn't help them at all. So, and seeing how the harm reduction model is more helpful because it meets them where they're at, but we don't leave them there, right? And and the opposite of alienation, depression, and addiction is that connection, right? And so, being able to connect with these guys to help them kind of maybe just heal temporarily through our exchanges down there, and then guiding them when they're ready to, receive. And I think the only reason I was able to perform the way I do is because going through Odyssey, they kept exposing me to this concept, community, and I was like, what does this mean? I could look at the dictionary and be like, all right, that's what it means, but it didn't resonate in my soul. But like having the stage to practice community, showing up for others through this kind of encounter process, and it sounds like a cliche because we hear it in Odyssey, right? Helped me internalize that process. So when I left, because I usually will tear up my community, right? I always leave it worse than I found it. And so this community concept, like it taught me that you leave your community better than you found it, whatever that is. Even if it's a conversation, you see someone having a bad day, you try to show up and maybe change that mood a little bit if you can, right? And that's just like really what I learned, and based on that, I guess, and Odyssey is a harm reduction model because a lot of things behaviors that we tackle in there, like most treatment centers will not tolerate. Like you can be exited, that day because of certain things, and we're gonna have a conversation. Well, I mean, we're not gonna tolerate forever, but. And that's why I like Odyssey, because it is a harm reduction model. There's only a couple things that will get you kicked out of there: violence, putting hands on somebody, and bringing drugs into the facility. And the rest of it, we're going to work with because we understand that that's a long process. And
so we talked last week's guest, Mike, talking about how he loves his job. Do you love being part?
Yeah, I do, and I like being able to work with Mike and some of the other staff there. Like they were my teachers, my senseis, Cheryl Shivers, I'm going to give her a shout out. She was there when I arrived, and she
runs our adult program completely.
Yeah.
How's your family reacting to all this?
To the change, or they like it.
No kidding.
Yeah, who would think,
That might be the dumbest question I've ever asked.
He seems like a good guy now.
Yeah, they're really mad, and they wish I would stop. No.
Yeah.
But no, it took for a couple of years to even, I think after I left treatment, for them to kind of, trust again, because they would send me texts, like, because I work a couple jobs, so I'm always busy and not the best at calling. Yeah. But I'm doing good, and then they'd text me and be like, what are you doing right now? Because usually when you don't hear from Damon, he's somewhere doing wrong, and I'll be like, well, I work 2 jobs and I'm busy. But now it's just like, wherever I stay, they believe, I probably have more integrity than them.
That's
honestly.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Damon, well, thank you so much for coming in.
Your
story, you knocked your head against the wall numerous times.
Yeah.
And he was a slow learner, but when he learned it well.
Yeah.
And my family could talk about me the same way. So you don't necessarily pick it up the first time or the second, but when you do, it's pretty valuable.
Yeah, for sure. And I think we gotta, as a culture, really think about the models of recovery we're using, because the punishment model, kind of legal system, forced treatment model is not showing a lot of results. But if you got a loving, listening model, like a harm reduction model, you're going to see a bigger impact, and people are going to heal quicker, and we'll have a lot less stress in the world. You know what I mean?
We sure will. Randall, once again, the number to call if they want to reach out, any of our viewers?
801-322-3222.
And that number was done specifically so I can remember it.
It is pretty easy, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And again, if you've got a challenge, if you know someone who has a challenge, anyone, call that number. There are so many wonderful people in the state of Utah who really want to help. And there are some great people. We've met a ton on this show.
Yeah, you don't have to come into Odyssey. There's a whole bunch of recovery groups. He works with one, YPR.
Young people recovery. There's USARA, there's fellowship. There's a world of it.
But call that number, and they will help you find a group that's going to be amazing for you. And Damon, thanks a lot.
Yeah, for sure.
We've enjoyed having you. We'll see you next time right here on Odyssey House Journals. Bye-bye.